Hi, this is Michael Buckoff from BetterTOEFLScores.com, and today I'm talking with one of my TOEFL iBT students. Her name is Begum, and she comes from Turkey. Now, Begum, first, could you tell our audience a little bit about your background in terms of your English study, and you can also talk about the Turkish program that you're a part of right now. So I think our audience might be interested to hear a little bit about you before we get into the actual interview.
First, we have an exam for entering the university, and my exam was in English because I was studying English in high school. So I have good grammar, I have good vocabulary for the exam, like the advanced level. It helped really much first, and after coming here, our program is about my other friends. They're here for learning grammar and vocabulary, and I'm here for improve myself. Like, I already know something, so I want to learn new things, and that.
And Begum, you talked about taking an English placement test back in Turkey. Could you talk a little bit about your English background before taking the test? What type of English instruction did you have, for example, in high school, elementary school, and so on?
I start in elementary school, at the end of the elementary school, and then it continue in high school. And this year it's still continuing, like it's still going on. So yeah, I'm still working on improving myself in English.
And so far in my TOEFL iBT class, you're doing a great job. I've had a chance to read your integrated writing essays, and also I've listened to your integrated speaking tasks, and you're doing a really good job on that. Now, a lot of people in my audience, they're interested probably in two things. First of all, they're interested in passing the TOEFL test. Second of all, they're interested in attending universities, maybe universities in the United States, it might be university in Australia, maybe England. Now, they want to be successful. So first of all, in terms of our interview, let's talk about the university class that you're taking. Now, this is your first experience taking a university class at an American university. So what is the name of the class and the name of the professor?
I'm taking U.S. history class, and we have 3 midterms during our class and 1 final exam and 1 writing assignment. Those 3 midterms are like twice a week. Oh, sorry. We have 1 midterm like 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we have midterms, writing assignments, and writing assignment is really hard. It's really because you have to be organized, you have to know all about the situation in that time. You should know.
Let me ask you a quick question. Let's go back to these midterms. 3 midterms. Wow. I mean, that's a lot of examinations for one class. What kinds of test questions do you have to answer on those midterm exams? For example, are they multiple choice? Are they true-false? Are they essay exams?
We have multiple choices exam. We have between 40 and 45 questions, and they're all multiple choices. So it's easier for me to get a test, multiple choices test, because it's when I read the question, I can remember. It's easier than the other types.
Essay exams can be more difficult than multiple choice exams because you can't just guess at A, B, C, or D, or guess if it's true or false. Either you have a 25% chance of getting it correct, or you have a 50% chance. Essay exams, you do have to have a good memory, and the essay exam tests your knowledge of the subject matter. Okay, aside from your multiple choice exams, let's talk about the writing assignments that you have in this class.
It was actually, my writing assignment was to give my opinion and research about Jefferson's inauguration speech, who is the second president of America. And
let me ask you, how many pages does this writing assignment have to be?
it should be approximately 750 words.
Okay, and how many pages?
So it's like 4 and 5 pages.
So maybe 4 to 5 pages?
Yeah.
And did your professor explain how the writing assignment would be graded?
No, he didn't. But he gave us like clues. Like you should be organized. You shouldn't summarize the whole speech. You should give the like turning points, and you should give like some clues about what he was thinking, what the public thinking, like who is the audience of his speech.
Audience analysis. That's a good writing assignment. It's like your professor's kind of asking you that you have to imagine who you think the audience might be based on the words that were given in the speech and the historical context of the speech. So it looks like your professor is asking you to engage in some critical thinking type writing activities. This means that you're not just writing about what was said, but you're going beyond the summary and you're trying to do some analysis about the speech and the history behind it and so on. So that kind of brings me to my question. So as an international student and as your first university class, what's difficult for you about getting this assignment done or completing it in a satisfactory way so you can get a good grade anyway?
Actually, it was easier for the native students because we talk about the Jefferson and his speech in our class, and we have some topics in our textbook too about this subject. But it's hard for me to understand them because it's a different, like the vocabulary is very hard in our textbook, and it has different grammar, like very, very difficult for me.
Yeah, the people that write these textbooks typically are college professors, and obviously they have PhD education, so they're going to be writing at a fairly high level of vocabulary and also a high level of grammar and sentence style. So that makes sense today. Yeah, it's going to be more difficult to understand these kinds of textbooks.
And it was challenging, like to understand first. Like I did some research from the internet, but it was still hard, so I asked for help the other native students in my class. And then they helped me, but they have writing assignment too, they have homeworks too, so they didn't have much time for me. I did it like most of the assignment I did myself. But the challenging part was to understand the situation at that time, because you're responsible to understand the all situation at that time, why he was giving a speech like that and why the audience are so interested in.
So it looks like your professor is trying to get you to understand the historical context behind the speech, and you have to have some pretty good reading skills and some analysis skills to be able to do that.
Yeah, because our professor said he didn't want us to summarize the speech.
One of the reasons your professor doesn't want you to just summarize, it's a useful skill and you'll need to use it sometimes in college, but it's not. Summarizing doesn't require that much thinking. It is important sometimes to take like several pages of a text and condense that down to a shorter version for your audience, but your professor's asking you to go beyond summary and to actually do what's called analysis. There is a difference between these two skills. A summary is to take a large several pages and then condense it to a shorter version of that. Analysis is to look at a complex situation and take out the most important parts of that situation. Your professor could very well be requiring you to look at several sources as you examine the historical context of Jefferson's speech. You may have to get information from several different sources as you analyze and examine that historical context. So also you're actually doing what's called synthesis. You're taking sources from information from several sources and then condensing it and putting it together within the same paper. So it sounds like your professor has a good writing skill that requires a lot of careful thinking, analysis, synthesis, and perhaps even some summary. So that's part of the difficulty, I think, in the university, is getting used to the types of writing assignments that you'll have. And I should mention in this interview, I've talked to a lot of different students, and they always tell me that they're very surprised after having taken the TOEFL and having completed the independent and integrated writing task at university. They find out that the writing assignments that we do in our college composition classes, for example, I'm an English professor and I have a lot of different writing assignments, that our writing assignments are a lot more complex than what the TOEFL actually requires. So in my the people in my audience right now, I hope that you're paying attention to get ready, that when you actually get into university, the writing assignments are going to be very challenging. Now let's go on over to our next question now. Begum, is listening. So you're going to a class that meets twice a week for 2 hours each time, and each time you have a lot of listening. So that brings me to, what kinds of strategies or advice do you have for international students who are preparing to enter universities in which English is a spoken language? How can they best prepare to develop their listening skills now, and what should they do when they are a student in a class and they're trying to make sure they're getting the most important points of the lecture from the professor?
Actually, I was a little confused about this at first, and I was nervous, so I record the lectures first, but it was so boring to listen to them again because it's like almost 2 hours, and it's just a waste of time, I think.
Yeah, when many years ago when I got my bachelor's degree in Spanish, I was so nervous when I started listening to my lectures in Spanish, and I did, like you, Begum, I recorded my lectures, and at the time I was taking 5 Spanish classes, and one time I came home and I remember having 8 hours of audio I had recorded. And to listen to 2 hours of a lecture, when you start and stop it and you try to write it down some notes and then you replay it to check to make sure you have the main points, to go over a 2-hour lecture from a university class can take sometimes 8 or 9 hours. Now remember, I had 5 classes, so if you take 8 hours it takes me to go over a 2-hour lecture going over the recording, 8 times 5 classes, that's 40 hours, and finally I realized, I go, wow, I do not have enough time to do this. And also it's terribly boring, like you said, so obviously that is not a good strategy. But this is what I like about what you're saying, is you're trying out things. You're trying to figure out what you think is going to work better for you and to help you succeed in a university class. So sometimes as a university student you will have to experiment with different kinds of strategies, and eventually you'll discover which ones work the best for you.
And then while listening to the lecture, I start to catch the keywords. Like we have outlines, and by looking at outlines I can see the keywords and the words that I should pay attention, so that I can take notes easier. And we have syllabus, so before going to class, before attending the class, I prepare myself to, like, I'm going to class ready to listen and ready to take notes, and I'm aware of what will the professor talk about. Okay. So it's easier and better.
So you're definitely figuring out some strategies. So far you've talked about 3 different strategies. The first strategy didn't work. You tried to record the lectures. However, paying attention to the outline, the handout that you're given, and helping that focus your ideas on the most important points of the lecture seemed to work really well. And your second point is also, it seems to be working very well, is you pay attention and you look into the syllabus to see what main points are actually going to be covered in the lecture. So that's actually a pretty good strategy, because in the syllabus, and anybody in my audience, if you're not sure what that means, a syllabus is similar to the word course outline. As professors, we like to outline the most important points of our class, and we put our grading policies, our attendance policies, our examinations, information about exams or writing assignments and so on. We put this into the syllabus, and even a lot of professors like me will even put on each day what's going to happen in those classes, and that's what Begum's talking about. She looks to see what's going to happen on a certain day, and she prepares herself. That's what you're doing, Begum. You're preparing yourself to get ready for the lecture, so it also helps you focus better on the most important parts of the lecture if you do that. Now let's make a transition and talk about reading. There's going to be, in any type of university class, there can be an extraordinarily large amount of reading assignments. So my question is, Begum, do you by chance remember how many pages your textbook is?
Oh, actually, I don't remember exactly, but in one lecture, just during a class, we are doing like 40 and 50 pages. Of course, you can't read the whole book, but you can just check from the internet what is the most important thing in the chapters, like because at the end of the chapters and at the beginning of the chapters there are some questions that questions like you should pay attention to this or that, and it's really helpful, really, because one chapter is 50 pages or more, and it's not possible to read all of them. It's not, even if you read all of them, you can't understand all of them because the vocabulary is hard.
Yeah, what do you do when you see words in the textbook that you're not sure of what the meaning is?
First, I was using dictionary for every word. I didn't know, but now it's more. I try to understand the words from the page, from the other sentences.
Sometimes using the context of a sentence is important in helping to understand the meaning of the word, in particular with textbooks. Textbooks will present you and students with a lot of unfamiliar words. The problem is, if you stop every time that you don't understand a word, it actually slows down your reading speed, and a lot of the research shows that a faster reading speed typically equals better comprehension. A slower reading speed equals poor comprehension. Now, I liked your suggestion. You talked about paying attention to the discussion questions. They might be referred to as review questions. These questions may appear in the beginning or at the end of the chapter, and during the chapter there will be specific titles, headings, subheadings, and so on that will let you know what the most important points are. And especially with these discussion questions, it's important to, as you're reading, to try to make sure you understand the answers to those questions, because that helps you understand the most important points of the chapter. Now, in terms of note-taking, what do you suggest students do in terms of note-taking and reading?
I have outlines in my class. My professor gives outline, so it's easier for me. Like I just look outlines, and then for improve myself, I take notes, like copying the outline, but in my own words. So, and I add something from the lecture and from the textbook. But without an outline, I think it will be better to focusing on textbook and the lecture, because the lecture gives the important points so that you don't have to read all book and all chapter. It could be an idea.
My brother used to always tell me work smarter, not harder, so it sounds like you're definitely a pretty smart student in terms of getting prepared for your classes and your reading assignments and all those things. And yeah, with reading it's difficult because, especially from an international standpoint, you might not have enough time to finish all of the reading assignments and all of your classes. So your suggestion of the lecture helped you understand what's most important in the chapter. So that's probably pretty true. So you can focus on those, what you think the most important points in the lecture are. You can go back to the reading and reread those areas to get further information to help expand your note-taking in that area. Also, you talked about using your outline. Sounds like a great idea. The professor has given you an outline to help you focus on the most important parts of the lecture. You can also use the outline to help you focus on the most important parts of the reading. One thing you mentioned I want to encourage my audience to really try to do is you would go through the reading, and you talked about trying to put things into your own words. You try to rewrite what you think the most important points are of the reading in your own words. That's called paraphrasing. And by rewriting something using your own grammar, using your own vocabulary, and doing it in your own words, it does improve your ability to understand what you read. A lot of research indicates that by rewriting something, essentially summarizing the information using your own words, is a great way to understand what you read, and you will be able to remember that information for longer periods of time, especially for your examinations, those kinds of things. Now this brings me to the next area that we want to talk about, speaking. Some classes have a lot of speaking in them, other classes not so much. What role does speaking have in this class, if any?
Actually, it's a really crowded class. We have maybe more than 60 students in our class. So to attend the class, like to have a role in a class, is almost impossible, because we're just listening to the professor and we're just looking at the outlines and taking notes. And speaking doesn't have a role in this class, I think.
Do you ever have any group activities, you work in groups and that kind of a situation, or is it pretty much just a lecture class?
And it's our homeworks and assignments, they're all individual,
So being such a large class, and your professor's focusing mostly on lecture, and then you guys do a lot of your things independently, that makes sense. All right, let's move on over to the writing section. You've already discussed quite a bit about the writing, and maybe my question here is maybe two things. If you could leave this my Better TOEFL Scores audience maybe with two tips. One tip maybe relating to writing and how to handle the writing assignments in university settings, and any other final ideas that would help potential students succeed in universities in which English is the spoken language, what advice would you give them?
I think the most important thing is to be aware of the type of an formal assignment. Like, it's going to be read by a professor, and you should be organized. There are some rules about, for example, codes and like page numbers and dates and your name. It has a different organization, and you should be aware of you're doing a formal thing, and I think that's the important point, most important point. The grammar and the vocabulary, they should, I think, go someone who knows English better than they, and just for like double check the assignment. Yeah, and the organization, it's the most important thing.
And especially in regards to writing assignments, university writing assignments, what you're saying about how it's important to find a native speaker, and the native speaker can help you a little bit with your vocabulary and your grammar problems, and even the organization problems. We know that at Cal State University here we have a writing center. And the Writing Center offers a free service for university students, and they can make appointments and go to the Writing Center and get advice on how to improve the paper. So that's definitely a really good idea. What you're saying is have your paper checked by somebody else to make sure that it's definitely not, it doesn't have a lot of non-native speaker type errors in there. And also you can always go to the professor, him or herself, during his or her office hours and discuss the paper during that time. So these are all great suggestions that you've been talking about, which I think can help prepare students and ensure that they're successful as they complete either reading assignments, writing assignments. They can better prepare for lectures. I think they can do better in terms of completing their midterm and final exams and all those things. So better TOEFL scores. We are very grateful, Begum, that you took the time to talk to my audience about your first experience taking an Open University class. And I'm pretty sure from what I know of you so far that you're very likely to be very successful in not just taking this particular class, but whatever your academic goals are. I'm pretty sure that you will be able to meet those goals due to your hard work, due to your organization, due to your active type learning strategies when it comes to succeeding in a university class. So good luck to you.